early autumn, Baltakhand to Odokh. The trip from Baltakhand across the Devseg Plateau went well. This time I travelled alongside Istiana's agent Aton. Her people, the Calradia, are still nomads. I met her near her tribe's summer encampment on the outskirts of Baltakhand. They spend the warm months in the north, on the higher mountain slopes where the grass is thick and lush. Fortuitously, their migration route south to their winter grazing grounds took me to my next destination, Odokh. Like many Calradia women, she carried a bow, saber, and lasso, and took her turn riding patrol around the herds of sheep and horses. She told me that it takes a half-dozen riders to safely move a herd, and that her people were constantly short of manpower. In the old days, when the Calradia were only one of many tribes living the nomadic life, it was easy for her people to find wives and husbands. But today, few other clans are willing to send their children to live the hard life out on the grasslands. To make matters worse, she said, it is next to impossible to prevent the herds from straying onto ever-expanding farmland, which means that the Calradia were constantly engaged in small battles with one village or another. Aton said that in the old days a Calradia maiden would not marry a man until he had slain his first enemy. Today, she said, she'd settle for a man who'd merely wounded someone, although she knew it would be a rocky marriage, as she had killed 2 of Con Monchog's men in a skirmish, and husbands often become quarrelsome and turn to drink when married to a more accomplished wife. The Calradia often stopped alongside the road to trade with passing farmers and other travellers. The further south we went, I noticed the nomads had more and more difficulty speaking with travellers in their own language, and the more they were forced to rely upon an argot, the trade language of the steppes, a mixture of simple Khuzite, Imperial, and Darshi words mixed with expansive hand gestures. The Devseg Plateau is a jumble of people, waves upon waves coming in from the great grasslands to the east before breaking on these shores. Some were fleeing enemies and found refuge in the high mountain valleys. Others were seeking some stability and chose to live in the well-watered lowlands, paying whatever tribute they needed to Khan, Emperor, or Padishah to be left in peace. The only complaint I had about the trip were the meals. I have never eaten so much meat. In Vostrom, we relish the food sold by Khuzite street vendors, those chunks of mutton cooked over open coals, or those bits of very salty eggplant soaked in mustard oil. But it's one thing to eat fatty mutton as a splurge, and another thing to eat it day in and day out. The eggplant is a Darshi dish, apparently. Whenever I had time near a village, and that village had no ongoing feud with the nomads, I tried to pick up a few extra loaves of bread. There was nothing to dip it in except fat rendered from a sheep's tail. Finally, I managed to buy some sort of syrup made from pomegranates, which was better, but still I would have killed for a vial of cheap imperial olive oil. At the end of our journey, we celebrated with melons bought from some farmers from the Kohirohini foothills. They were delicious, and I wish I had known they were available when we set out. Aton was good company. I asked her why the Calradia did not abandon the steppe life and pledge fealty to Con Monchog, who was always in need of warriors, and would honour them and grant them lands of their own, so they didn't need to fight their way across the Devseg every year to use their traditional pastures. She gestured up at the blue sky above us where an eagle was circling. Should he burrow like a rabbit? She asked. This was what they thought about farming. The Calradia's pride makes them insufferable to the other Khuzite clans. Many a proud Noyan has returned from Monchog's wars on a great imperial war horse with gilded barding and wagons laden high with loot, only to see a skin-clad Calradia on a scruffy pony looking at him with pity and disappointment.